Trainers, could we exchange flags, please? Boxers, I am the referee. I spoke to you both in the dressing room. Obey my command at all times. You both know the rules. What's the heads? Keep them punches up. And when I shout break, you break clean. And remember, to defend yourselves at all times. Shake hands.
At this level in the heavyweight division, simply winning this fight puts one of these two fighters in line for a giant payday against someone at the top of the division. But if one of these guys wants to be more than just the B-side, more than just an opponent on the way to an Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder super fight, then an emphatic statement win in a great action fight is what they should be looking for. And we might get it, Jim, given these guys' styles.
Well, time is running out, or so it would seem for Lukas Bраун, who turns 39 next month. Dillиan Whyte, 29, considerably younger. In fact, heavyweights don't tend to mature to their absolute peak until around age 30 in most instances, so Dillиan Whyte may have bigger things to look ahead to.
Seen Lukas Bраун in better shape around the midsection than this, obviously. But he's been inactive recently.
But it's an inviting target for a fighter like Whyte, who, as we mentioned, throws the second highest concentration of body punches among all the top fighters in the heavyweight division. Only Joseph Parker is slightly more prolific as a body puncher.
I wonder if Brown's big right hand, just up top, dissuades Dillиan Whyte from going to the body early.
Whyte may want to taste that right hand a time or two to make certain that he's going to be able to weather it before taking the risk of throwing body punches, because, of course, body punchers always risk being countered upstairs.
You know, when we talk about feeling out rounds, and it's kind of used as an excuse for early rounds in fights where nothing happens because neither fighter really wants to take a risk, this is an actual feeling out round. Both fighters are testing the opponent's defenses. When I feint, where does he go with his hands? When I throw the jab upstairs, what does he do? This is an actual feeling out round. There's stuff getting done here.
To the degree that they're scoring, I would have to say Whyte has landed some shots, and I have not seen Lukas Bраун really make contact in a definitive way with Dillиan Whyte. But I'm not the scorer. Our unofficial ringside scorer is Harold Letterman, scoring from a studio in New York, and we'll be going to him at normal intervals throughout the fight to see how he has it.
Bраун, for some reason, turned southpaw there and tried a left hand as a power shot. I mentioned, Jim, that Bраун, but it applies to both fighters, neither is really conventional. But Bраун has had a way, and Dillиan Whyte obviously through just through the volume of body punching, but Bраун also has a way of getting those punches home. He has a tricky way of throwing the right hand off beat, takes steps to the side and catches guys coming in with the right hand, and it's a big right hand. There's a nice right hand from Whyte.
CompuBox disagreeing with me about the question of whether Lukas Bраун has landed punches. They give him credit for 8 landed punches so far.
There's a cut over, it looks like, Brown's left eye.
And there's a hard right hand in the vicinity of the cut from Dillиan Whyte.
Listen, talking to me, let them feel the weather.
Get behind the jab as you are, nice and relaxed, You're working him, and he's going to swing. I know he's got he's going to swing, and we can see him coming on the swing.
It's a punch.
Thank you, Brett. Nice and relaxed as you are, lovely turn.
He's cut already as well.
Keep working that cut jab, guys. Don't overreach.
Walter, thumb shield.
Don't overreach,
So you you saw that they were working the cut on the left eye of Browne in Browne's corner, and the blood did legitimately begin to flow once he sat down on the stool, Max. So already Dillian Whyte has a tactical working advantage going to round 2.
Whyte came in as the favorite. Not a huge favorite, but the solid favorite to win the fight. Browne is seen as a live dog, a live underdog, because as I mentioned, he's shown grit to stick around in fights even when he was losing, and a big right hand to win those fights.
There's another hard right hand dropped in by Dillian Whyte, and obviously he's thinking strategically now and working on that cut on Lukas Braune's face, and there's another right hand landing in the vicinity of the left eye.
That's right. So if one guy comes in the favorite and then cuts his opponent, who doesn't look like he's in the best of shape to begin with, and starts to take over the fight, I would say if you redid the odds, Browne would be a more substantial underdog.
Still has the potential equalizer. His size, his weight, his big right hand. There are 2 hard body shots by Dillian Whyte, and that is the Whyte that we have characteristically seen in his most recent fights. 6-fight win streak since the loss to Joshua, largely fashioned on his body punching style.
Jim, I know you like the left hook to the body, but how do you like that right hand that he snaked in? I mean, Dillian Whyte hit him with quite a right hand to the gut.
I was looking back at Roy Jones's knockout of Virgil Hill the other night, and it reminded me that the right hand to the body can be just as effective.
Particularly if you have enough accuracy to target organs, which Roy Jones did. But here, Dillian Whyte is just digging hard shots to the body, and we mentioned there's an inviting target there, a loose, big, inviting target on Lukas Brown. Whyte's taking advantage.
And now Whyte is jabbing the left eye. Focusing on the beachhead he's already established with the blood flowing out of Lukas Brown's left eye.
So far, an impressive outing for Whyte because he's been dominating. And also, you know, you watch the way Whyte throws those punches, that right hand. He throws them in such a way they look like slapping shots. They look like he can't get a lot on them. And he throws them almost from the position where his hand starts in front of his body. And yet somehow he's able to generate, I don't know if it's torque or he's just heavy-handed. He's able to generate power on those kind of quick-fisted slap shots.
Well, he appears to pronate the wrist just at the last moment before the glove makes contact, and that helps to establish a stiffer punch than would otherwise be the case.
I think you're right about that, and he's good, another good right hand to the body, and
the left eye looks terrible.
Yep.
So Browne blinking and bleeding as he walks back to his corner. Meanwhile, April 28th brings middleweight Daniel Jacobs back to his roots in Brooklyn, New York, to face Maciej Sulecki of Poland. Also that night, undefeated heavyweight Jarrell Big Baby Miller, also from Brooklyn, faces Frenchman Johan Duhaupas. Middleweight, heavyweight doubleheader in Brooklyn, April 28th.
I got that time on. I couldn't save everything.
Happy box numbers in round 2, pretty heavily weighted in Dillian Whyte's favor. I think I saw him landing 21 out of 54 on the graphic, and that many of those punches were targeted toward the left eye of Lukas Brown, which is still trickling blood as he comes into the ring for round number 3.
Whyte has, as I mentioned, thrown an effective straight right hand that looks like a slap. It lands with some force, but he hasn't yet landed one of his real good right hands up top on Lukas Brown, and that may be forthcoming. Because he knows now where the range is for the right hand.
Left hand body shot by Whyte, and there's a hard right hand.
There it is.
Sweat and Vaseline flying off the face of Browne.
There it was, and he found the range with the jab, and this time put a little mustard on the right hand And Browne's face is a mess, Jim.
Yeah, the blood is starting to flow very freely from Browne's left eye once again. We've got more than 2 minutes remaining in round number 3 as Dillian Whyte tries to crank up the punishment and put himself in a position for an early stoppage of Lukas Bраун.
And Browne has the right idea there. He's being outclassed so far. The blood is flowing. He's getting hammered, so he's throwing caution to the wind a little bit, or at least not playing it so safe. Plodding forward and letting his hands go more, loading up on a shot. That's the right strategy when you're outclassed. At least give yourself a chance to land something big.
The smartest thing Lukas Bраун did is to land a thunderous body shot about 30 seconds ago. And that body shot was enough to show you he remains serious business in the ring. Trying to curl a right hand now around Dillian Whyte's glove and then curl a left hand around the guard as well.
I mean, if Dillian Whyte doesn't get hit with anything stupid, this is the kind of performance so far, Jim, that I mentioned off the top of the broadcast or before the fight, before the opening bell. Not simply win and move on in a lackluster affair,
well,
and become a B-side of a promotion, but can you win in such a way that makes people say, you know what, he poses a threat to the top of the division? That's the kind of performance so far by Dillian Whyte tonight.
Well, meanwhile, Lukas Bраун has bloodied Whyte's nose as this aggression now that we've seen in the last minute from Browne as he tries to stay in the fight has done some damage. Dillian Whyte now blowing blood out of his nostrils as he comes forward and continues to attack the bloody left eye of Lukas Bраун.
Listen, if a fighter who's at least experienced on the pro level, as Lukas Bраун is, 260 pounds with a big right hand, decides I'm just going to come forward and start throwing punches, he may have moments like that, but that moment was fleeting, and Dillian Whyte is going back to flying his head.
Browne once again in the southpaw stance. Could that be possibly to turn the left eye away from Whyte and try to protect it?
Yes, but I thought he was doing that even before the cut was there.
He might have known how susceptible that eye was to cutting.
Listen, we've got to start making it a little bit more easier now.
What I like about Dillian Whyte's performance so far, Jim, is when he has an advantage, he's not content to sit back. He's pressing it. There's the right hand. Good left hook to the body. Follows up with the left hand. That misses, but the right hand lands. None of those devastating, except maybe the hook to the body was a nice hard shot. But the point is that's a heavyweight throwing in combination in the middle of the ring.
CompuBox in the last 2 rounds finds Whyte landing 44 punches to only 15 for Lukas Bраун. As we come to round number 4, we check in for the first time with our unofficial ringside scorer in a studio in New York, Harold Letterman. Harold, how do you have it through the first 3?
Okay, Jim, I got a 3-0, 30-27 Dillian Whyte. Jim, I got to tell you something. You're allowed to use, a little bit of a foreign substance, I mean Vaseline, on a fighter. But the referee should really check the guy coming out of the corner if he's got a cut eye. You can't come out of the corner with all that Vaseline. The referee has an obligation to take off a lot of that Vaseline if there's just too much on there. So, what I'm saying is that Lukas Bраун should use a little bit of Vaseline, but not a whole lot. 3-0, Dillian Whyte.
After that right hand, I think Dillian Whyte may have cleaned it up for him.
Referee is Ian John Lewis, who is, I am told, a British veteran referee. I can't tell you that I've seen him before. He's the one who should be watching the Vaseline content on Brown's eye coming out of the corner. Now midway through round 4, Lukas Bраун showing that sense of urgency and trying to land a big shot that will turn things around.
If not for the knowledge of Brown's power in his right hand and his ability to absorb a punch, already you're thinking stop the fight. Only because there are pretty high stakes in a fight like this. Their futures are on the line. And we know Browne can punch. Do you not already start calling for the stoppage of this fight because he is taking a beating?
That was a thunderous right hand from Dillian Whyte. Good left hook there.
If that sounds wrong to some, well, why should a guy's potential to win a fight with a big right hand change whether or not you stop it? If he's taking punishment, he's taking punishment. Boxing is a risk sport, and the possible reward does affect the way it is viewed. There's a big reward for the winner of this fight in terms of their positioning in the most lucrative division in boxing.
One look at Lukas Bраун tells you he's a hard guy who understands that this is a hard business, and he may find himself in a hard fight. Certainly he, at this point, doesn't want the referee to stop the fight, regardless of how much blood is coming out of his left eye.
Yeah, and because, you know, against another fighter, Browne would maybe feel, and his corner would maybe feel, you know, we're going to land this big right hand. And it's not that he doesn't have a chance to do it, but White is not a headhunter. You just saw it. He's beating up Browne, but he's still going down to the body and hurting him there.
And any chance of Browne winning a decision, which may have seemed remote just on the surface coming in, is waning away further with each passing round, as Dillian Whyte, by my lights at least, is winning all of the rounds so far.
Right, and I want to get back to the body punching because Dillian Whyte keeps getting back to it. Among the many virtues of body punching, Jim, and you extol its virtues constantly, is that your offense doesn't stall. You know, if Dillian Whyte wasn't such a committed body puncher here, there are things Browne could do to stall his offense a little bit, but Whyte continues to go downstairs.
You did a good job. Right. You did a good job. Just look a little bit more like all the time you did.
When you go southpaw, you can't hit that eye. Pick that eye for going southpaw.
You saw the CompuBox graphic that established that CompuBox found Dillian Whyte landing 2/3 of his power shots, 14 out of 21 in the last round. Increasingly, it seems possible that Lukas Bраун can't see the right hand coming. And that makes it easier for Dillian Whyte to continue piling up the punishment.
Particularly, as I mentioned, because he goes to the body. Even a big plotter like Browne, and he's been doing it, can make little moves if his opponent's just going to go upstairs to slip shots. But when the opponent will go to the body, a 260-pound frame, he can't move that around so easily, and that's opening up even more opportunities upstairs. And now Whyte is taking advantage of those increasingly too.
Whyte landed a hard uppercut that sent a glob of Vaseline flying through the air off of Lukas Bраун's head. That goes back to the point that Harold made about too much Vaseline, and now that that glob of Vaseline flew off of Bраун's head, the blood is flowing as though a spigot has opened on the left side of his face.
And now, in spite of any power Browne might have, in spite of how brave he may be or his corner may be, the ref has to take a good hard look at this because he is being clobbered upstairs by a 250-pounder who is landing everything and cleanly. His face is a bloody mess. It's falling apart. His movements are much less sure, starting to be less coordinated, and the blood is flowing out of his eye. It looks like out of his nose, through his mouth.
It isn't quite yet full-scale target practice for Dillian Whyte, but it is target practice with the right hand upstairs.
Yeah, and again, because he'll go to the body, there's a never-ending barrage of punches being landed.
And by the way, they've gotten the blood that was flowing from Whyte's nose earlier under control. So he's not compromised in any way in there right now as he continues to select the hard shots he wants to throw against Lukas Bраун.
The only hope, if you're in Browne's corner and letting this continue, and at this point that's questionable, is maybe Whyte punches himself out. Maybe Whyte is so emboldened by this. You say it's not target practice yet. Boy, if it's not, it's the next thing to it, Jim.
It's pretty close.
Maybe he's so emboldened that he gets reckless and there's a right-hand counter there for Browne. But Browne's not landing anything, and he's just taking savage shots.
Browne has been noteworthily inactive in his career. One fight per year for each of the past 3 years. Turns 39 next month. So he made the point coming in here that it's now or never, more or less, for him. If he can't turn this around, it'll be a long flight back to Australia, and he'll have to face the question of exactly whether it's worth sustaining this career in the face of the kind of punishment he's taking.
And to put it another way, if he was something like a 2-to-1 favorite to start the fight, what would the odds be at this moment?
20-1?
20-1, 40-1 at a certain point. The question has to be asked, is the reward worth the risk to Lukas Braun's health and the rest of his life? Because he is really getting beaten up.
5 of the schedule, 12 complete. Tuesday, it's the next installment of Real Sports. Learn how basketball legend Shaquille O'Neal has become one of the most successful businessmen in American sports history. April 18, it's the return of my show, The Fight Game. Join us for one-of-a-kind insights and commentary on the biggest stories and issues facing the sport of boxing.
And here's the danger in a fight like this. Here you see Dillian Whyte, right hand, one of those kind of slapping right hands that he's able to get some steam on, as I mentioned before, and here it comes again. Same thing, see, he almost pushes it out, but he manages to get some pop on it. But the danger, Jim, is because Browne has a big right hand and a good chin, and because White's a good puncher but not a devastating one, it's going to take a lot of those to get Browne out of there. How many of them are he and his corner especially willing for him to take?
And the graphic shows you that our unofficial ringside scorer, Harold Letterman, has scored every round for Dillian Whyte. That's not at all surprising. He's been more accurate, he's been more active, and he is turning Lukas Braun's face into a bloody pulp. There again, another glob of Vaseline flies through the air. Browne is down and out after a left hook. Finally, Whyte goes to a neutral corner, and the referee stops the fight. Medical staff rushing into the ring as that was a thunderous left hook and appears to have knocked Lukas Braun unconscious.
And the way they're rolling him right now, it's dangerous for his left arm. It's under his body in such a way where they can't roll him on his back without moving it.
Actually, it's his right arm.
Sorry, his right arm. Excuse me, his right arm.
Is under his body and behind his back. And you're 100% correct. There's no way to roll him in that particular position without risking a dislocation of the shoulder.
And so we get a, if not star-turning performance, a statement performance by Dillian Whyte. But the question is, Jim, as we've been talking about the last couple rounds, was the slim possibility that Browne could somehow land a miracle punch worth this right here?
And if you're evaluating what Whyte did tonight, the question is, did he beat a fighter or a heavy bag? It was simply an easy outing for Dillian Whyte. And there's that thunderous left hook that knocked Lukas Braun cold. Watch it again. Grazing right, thunderous left, and that put Lukas Braun to sleep. And as soon as he landed the shot, Dillian Whyte knew that he had something to celebrate and began dancing wildly around the ring.
You have to give Dillian Whyte credit, too, and he's concerned about Lukas Braun. He's coming over there, and there was bad blood before this fight. He's checking on Lukas Braun. You have to give Dillian Whyte credit. He came out, he knew his opponent was finished, and he looked to get him out of there. But, Jim, he was also giving the ref and Lukas Braun's corner an excuse to stop the fight. Just by ramping up the activity and throwing with a little more mustard, he was giving them the excuse to stop the fight. They were not going to stop this fight in Lukas Braun's corner until he was flat on his back, and that's exactly what happened, and that's probably not the best policy.
So, Max, you said it brilliantly. There was bad blood between the two fighters before the fight. Once the fight began, there was just blood. Whyte was able to cut Lukas Braun's left eye before the end of the first round. And each succeeding round became an exercise in the corner, working frantically to try to stop the bleeding. The referee gauging the amount of damage that was being done, and Dillian Whyte tactically pursuing the target over and over again.
And look, if it seems insensitive to be talking about Dillian Whyte and his prospects while Lukas Braun is still, now he's sitting up, but it looks like he's getting oxygen, and Dillian Whyte had face planted him on the canvas with a brutal left hook, and his face was beaten to a bloody, pulpy mess. If it seems insensitive to talk about Dillian Whyte and his future prospects, I understand. I see that Lukas Bраун seems responsive right now. He's sitting up. He seems to know where he is. So forgive me if I do talk about Dillian Whyte for a moment here. Jim, if the idea was to be a credible opponent for the top of the division, maybe even for Deontay Wilder as they're looking to build Wilder and Joshua, or for a Joshua rematch, Dillian Whyte has certainly
pride
done.
of Brixton, London, England, Dillian, the body snatcher